This is Talk is Sheep, the official podcast of the Wild Sheep Society of BC, brought to you by Sitka Game. Come along as we bring conversations that matter to you into the high alpine. Mr. Joseph frickin' Humphries, brother, great to see you.
Good to be back, brother.
Longest podcast in the history of Talk is Sheep. You're a legend for a variety of reasons, but that's one of them. That said, awesome podcast today. We've got an incredible guest on, Ryan, good friend of yours, obviously, and just a pillar of our hunting and conservation community, and just a lot going on in Ryan's life these days.
I don't know if you want to call him like a cat chasing three mice or what. He's always got 100 things going on, and he's obviously taken on more in the last few days, I guess, or few weeks. But it was good to nail him down for an hour and a little bit, and I think we're going to get some good stuff out of him.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, he's been around a long time. He's been doing the hunting world for literally decades, and gained that reputation, that name. He's an elite athlete and so many great things. And to me, the thing that I like about Ryan is his message. It's always about conservation, community, about our hunting, our hunting legacy, all these things that matter to me. And when Ryan talks, there's some people that talk, and you have to listen because they know what the hell they're talking about. He's just one of those guys. He's gained that respect over decades of doing what he does.
Well, and you listen to his journey. He's been with Jim Shockey Hunting Adventures now for, I believe, close to 10 years. But I mean, he's raised, I don't think he's born, but he's definitely raised 40 plus years in the Yukon. He's worked for probably half of the, historically, of the guide outfitters in the territories of the Yukon. He's represented and continues to represent Canada at an athletic level, nationally and internationally, in running. And he's got a history and hopefully a very prosperous future in politics coming up. So there's going to be a lot to digest, not to mention how he set our society up with this phenomenal late season caribou hunt that someone's going to have a once in a lifetime opportunity this fall.
That's a perfect segue, man. So for our listeners, obviously Ryan's got so much to share with us, and towards the end of the podcast, we talk about exactly that. Is our raffle that we currently have on through the Wild Sheep Society BC. Worked with Ryan on that, and hats off to you, Joe and Ryan, for you guys putting that together. That's just a phenomenal package and really exciting for our the society's membership.
Yeah, well, that's a testament to Ryan and his position with Jim Shockey Hunting Adventures and the Rogue River Outfitting Territory in the Yukon. But to Jim, the business, conservation minded, and anyone who knows any of these individuals or businesses, fully aligned with what we're doing, and they help us out when and wherever they can. And Ryan's just a delight to talk to when he's not in rigorous training. If you can put a whiskey in his hand, it gets more animated as you go.
I'd love to be part of that. And, Ryan, you'll hear on the podcast, we talk with Ryan about coming up there and trying to do a in-person pod, and that'd be phenomenal. Come up, and while it's been a while, it's been almost 18 months since I've been up and hung out with you there. So came up and visited you in August, not this year, this past year, the year before. And man, that was a lot of fun. So we gotta do a repeat, and maybe we get Ryan on a podcast again in person, and then as always, when you get that whiskey in hand, it's always the little bit more freer conversation. It's always more fun.
Well, we're going to make that happen. I think there's going to be maybe a Talk is Sheep in the Yukon, or a with Ryan Leef part 2, drink in hand. But I think for right now, there's a lot to listen to and a lot to digest, and really excited for this one.
Yeah, right on. So with that, anyone interested in the caribou hunt, you'll hear Ryan talk about it towards the end of what you can expect with Rogue River. And we have the show notes. If you just go down to the bottom of them, you'll see a link to the hunt itself. So with that, we hope you enjoy Mr. Ryan Leef.
This episode is sponsored by our conservation partner, Yeti. Thank you, Sitka Gear and Yeti, for investing in healthy wildlife and sustainable ecosystems.
Well, gentlemen, it is absolutely a pleasure and an honor to have two incredible guests, good friends, and certainly advocates for the outdoor space and conservation community. So, first of all, no stranger to the podcast, Joe Humphries, Treasurer for Wild Sheep Society BC. Welcome back, Joe.
Thanks, Kyle. Good to be back after that season one episode. I didn't know if I'd ever get airspace again.
It's the longest running podcast in the history of Talk Sheep. So congratulations on that. Nolan gave you an honest run for your money. He's got you on the curse words, but you got him on the length. So you got him beat there. So, and Ryan, welcome to the podcast. No stranger to the Wild Sheep Society BC. You were a keynote for us back in Kamloops back in the day. You've done so much stuff on the seminars and everything. And just an awesome privilege to have you on the podcast, Ryan. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. Always happy to talk hunting with fellow hunters and supporters of conservation. So looking forward to a broad discussion with no holds barred.
Awesome. My favorite. Well, and there's lots going on in your world right now. And I know you too, Joe. And so, forgive me, we're going to focus a little bit on Ryan and we're going to tag team him on this one, Joe. So, but Ryan, I know you got lots going on and, so you're no stranger to the guide outfitting community, the conservation world, politics, fitness. So I don't know where this is going to go today, but I know there's going to be a lot of great topics, but, let's catch the latest and greatest in your world. What's going on? Sort of the 5-minute overview of what's happening with you, because I know I just start picking things apart, and but obviously for you, you got priorities of what you've done, and this has been a big couple of months for you.
Yeah, wow. It has been. I turned 51 and I'm not saying that to celebrate my birthday. I have a belated birthday celebration here, but kind of a good milestone in my world to continue focusing on my elite running that I've pursued for over 4 decades, and it's obviously contributes to my success as a mountain guide here in the Yukon territory. So fitness has always been such a big thing, and been pleased to have the honor of representing the Yukon and Canada at the international stage still in track and field at 51. So that's been good, pursuing that passion and keeping busy with Jim Shockey and all his work, and helping the Rogue River team. And just recently I got my name back. Sometimes I don't know why, but I got my name back in the federal political arena. And just this Saturday was honored to receive the support of the Conservative membership to face the nomination in the upcoming federal election, whenever that is. So I'm back in the political arena, so I can talk, ground game hunting and guiding, athletics and fitness, and now I guess I'll be talking politics.
That's awesome, and all those are really something that we love to talk about here at Talk is Sheep, and our listeners want to hear about. Let's touch a little bit on I guess your achievements here and what you've been doing in the running world. Maybe talk a little bit about what you've done. I know the world's just wrapped up, and you're in the Masters category now. Just talk about where you're sitting in there, and one thing that I really want to explore is. At 51, how you keep your game on, like how the hell, and especially doing it in an environment like the Yukon. It's not like you're in Jamaica where you got weather year round that you can run in. You've got some pretty adverse conditions. I know you do a lot of stuff inside, but I'd love to hear about. Let's talk about your achievements first, and then let's talk about your training after that.
Yeah, well, like I say, a good, what I'm probably most proud of is just any opportunity that I've had to represent the territory and our country, is always such an honor. And in running has been a huge part of my life, over 4 decades now. I started competitively when I was 10, and carried that through all my junior and senior career. And it's just been a place that I've always, kind of gone to when I'm trying to sort of find equilibrium in my life. And I think a lot of people have that and probably can relate. For me, it's athletics. For some people, it's art. For some people, it's painting. For some people, it's going for a walk or visiting with family. And I've always kind of found running to be that that place in my life where I could find that balance and peace in the world. And it just happens that with my competitive nature, I've been able to drive that into some sort of performance success at a more elite level, even into my 50s. So this last summer, I represented Canada at the Pan Am Masters Games and found success there. And then throughout the year, ran a number of national competitions from the road and on the track, and I've been doing great with that, and you know, it's just one of those things that I've been blessed to go through a life where I've been largely healthy, knock on wood, and maintain my fitness and you know, just use it as a way to inspire other people to see age as so much more than a number, see it as an opportunity to utilize that experience that we've all come with when our youth starts to walk away on us, that we can start to dwell on that bank of experience that we've all generated, and running is just another way for me to express that, and it's been a lot of fun. I do translate that into the work that I do guiding and I in business and I'll apply the exact same lessons in life from my elite running into politics as well. So running's just been a gift for me, and it's one of those things that gives me a lot of freedom and peace. And I think people can find some relatability to that no matter what it is they pursue.
So have you found there's a bit of an evolution now that you're no longer competing in your 20s, 30s, 40s? Now you've kind of moved into this, this 50s era, and you wouldn't know it looking at you. You look like you're still in your 30s when you're running, but has there been an evolution for you in terms of how you train and what you do? And touch a little bit on the whole Yukon aspect of it too, like, how much of that, and Joe, you can touch on it too, how much that winter aspect plays into training, and does it disadvantage you when you're competing against some of these other, somebody that's in a warm climate that has really good outdoor running conditions year round?
Yeah, you certainly have to evolve the program. So I've been, supported by coaches throughout my career, but in a number of sort of mid years in my high 20s and 30s, I did a lot of self coaching, and I've teamed up with a fellow Yukoner, David Eichelboom, who's a tremendous runner in his own right, fantastic coach. And I reached out to him a year and a half ago, specifically on the age part of this. Was as we get older as athletes, you can't train the same way you used to be able to. So you have to really have a level of understanding or maturity in some of the realistic boundaries that you need to set. You do have to readjust your program largely around the recovery and mobility end of things as you age. And nutrition and fuel intake can be a really important part of that component. Like, I think we all know this. When we were younger, you could punish your body and get up the next day and just do it again and again and again. And sometimes, all those college days where you could drink all night long and wake up in the morning completely hungover free, or even hungover and get back to the business and doing whatever you're doing. Those days are done. Like, that ship has long sailed. So you need to know how to respond to your body's aging. And when you do that, I look to have some guidance with that, because sometimes you just don't have the insight into your own recovery capacity, your own fitness capacity at this age. So I brought a coach in that could rein me in, bring some reality back to the fact that I am getting older, but still harness all of the things that are ahead of me. And it's been a wonderful relationship, and it's really helped me out for sure, recognize the things that I can't do anymore, but where I still have tremendous opportunity. So age really is as much as a barrier as you let it be. And if you're open to accepting, what's going to happen to your body as you get a bit older, and find ways to work within that reality, that gap between your youth and your present day can be much, much smaller. I mean, of course, I'm going to slow down. Of course, I'm going to feel the effects of fitness and running and training and whatever else I'm doing in life a little bit more than I would have in my 20s. But it doesn't mean that gap needs to exponentially grow anymore. And that's a real exciting thing, I think, for aging athletes and aging people in general. If we take care of our bodies and pay attention to how we age, then we can age a bit slower, a lot more gracefully, and far more enjoyably, for sure.
So on that note, I find it interesting. I've talked lots about my wife about this. She's done some distance running, not at your level, obviously, but um, we see like on the West Coast, there's like this high prevalence of hip replacements, knee replacements, and it's because of basically overuse because there's a lot, it's very active communities on the West Coast in general. So there's a much higher prevalence of that. So have you found that there's been any degradation like physically with you in terms of like, joint health or injuries or anything like that? Like just, there's the aging aspect, but is any of your body breaking down where you're like, you know what, it's on the horizon. I know I'm going to have problems with this knee or this hip down the road.
Yeah, no, I've been lucky. I went through quite a rough patch last year, and to be honest, still don't know really what it was. You know, I was checking to see if it was a nerve issue or an injury issue or an inflammation issue based on an injury, and was really battling both physical pain and then degraded performance over that. So, I just invested all kinds of time in different types of therapies from chiropractic to red light therapy to acupuncture, inversion, obviously the standard heat and ice kind of business, physiotherapy, massage therapy, went through the whole gamut of stuff trying to tackle this nagging sort of injury that was drawing down on my performances. And obviously part of your mind goes to, well, maybe it is age and this is just a reality for me now. Um, but I had the presence of mind and obviously the experience over time to know that if you're persistent at doing things and you pursue the right questions, you'll eventually find the right answers. So I did everything, ran the blood work, did X-rays and MRIs to see if there was injuries that I couldn't detect. And really, although we couldn't put our finger on it, we kept trying everything diligently. And it just finally clicked last June or July. It all of a sudden just started weeding itself out of my system, and then I was really literally off to the races from that point on. And the one thing I think that I could say about it, because you can't undo long-term degradation-based injuries, right? Like if you blow your knees and you have bad knees and you have bad hips, those things you're gonna have to find ways of managing that. But I think really what it boiled down to for me as I was aging, because I was fortunate enough to not have that be the case, was just the mobility work that I wasn't doing. And as I started to introduce a lot more natural mobility work to my regimen, then all of a sudden the muscles, the tendons, the bones, my skeletal structure, your shrinking muscle capacity, your muscle mass loss, all of those things started to come together as I improved my own mobility. And the best way I heard it described was that, we have lubrication in our joints like a machine, and those things naturally are better functioning as you're younger. And as you age, if you're not moving your joints and your bones and your muscles in a manner that allows that lubrication to properly come in, as you age, it just won't naturally seat itself right. So you have to find constant efforts at dedicating yourself, not just to stretching, let's say, but to proper body mobility motion to allow your joints and your tendons and your muscles to be lubricated properly, and then they can stretch out naturally. So it's all this kind of function of physiotherapy that I would have ignored 10 years ago and did as recently as a year ago until all of these things started to come to a head and disrupt my fitness and training. So I think if I was going to give any advice to aging athletes or aging hunters or aging people in general, is look to make sure you're finding ways to improve your mobility. Dedicate some time to moving your joints and moving your muscles properly and slowly, and not just warming them up, not just strengthening them, but actually doing a wide range of mobility exercises to take care of your muscles so each one works together the way it should. And that might be unique to you, and it might be something you need to talk with your physiotherapist about, but it's something we often ignore, and we strengthen and we stretch, but we often don't deal enough with our mobility. And when you can do that, I think you can start to work yourself toward a healthier and longer sustained body movement and enjoyment of life.
can you just give us an example of maybe some of the mobility exercises that you've incorporated or what you're doing now that you feel has been rudimentary to fixing that stuff that if you could pinpoint that you weren't doing before? Is it isometric stuff? Is it stuff from your physiotherapist? Just kind of curious what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, to describe sort of the basic is just, a natural foot to head movement exercises. A lot of people will find, you'll realize pain later in life in areas, and the pain isn't often the source. It's often much further along the chain of where the origin of your issue is. So it's often just best to start down with your feet. So I'm doing I do a lot of ankle stretching exercises with bands and just flex my ankles and stretch those. And if you can keep strong feet, then you start with strong Achilles, you keep strong calves, then you balance out the pressures on your hamstring and your quads, then your hips and your core. And all of a sudden, all those things start being taken care of simply just by making sure you're doing ankle mobility exercises and ankle strengthening exercises. There's so much that starts with our feet. And of course, we're in a world nowadays, especially hunters, where we're in and out of different boots all the time. We're buying different boot products. We're relying on different boot products for different things that we're doing, from muck boots to mountain boots to pack loads and all kinds of things that change our foot dynamic depending on what we're doing with the footwear we put on and on what terrain we're using it and under what load. So there, I mean, that's just a basic one is that ankle and foot strengthening and ankle mobility. But then I move up from there and I make sure I'm doing mobility exercises with my knees, hip rotations. A lot of that is, how does that sound? A lot of our core can be affected by the load we put on our hips. And that's just day-to-day business, like just standing, sitting, walking, sustaining weight and awkward movement on our hips. And if we're at all uncomfortable with anything, like we get a sore calf or a sore hamstring, we start to shift our body often onto our hips. And then that creates a really weird load for us. And those guys and gals that are out hunting, strapping on backpacks and putting that under load, that's the kind of thing that can haunt you 5 years down if you don't take care of those mobility exercises. We can deal with those loads when we're young, but later in life, they can really mount up for us. So I do a lot of not weird, but I do a lot of hip exercise that I wouldn't demonstrate on camera to your audience, or they think I'm doing some sort of hula hoop thing that might look a little strange. But you can imagine just making sure you're rotating and moving your hips side to side in a circular fashion. All of that gets the joints warmed up, and it gets the body moving properly. And those have been really magic keys to feeling good when I wake up in the morning, feeling good when I go to bed at night, and feeling good before and after intense exercise.
So something like that, you're obviously talking about basically being an elite athlete in the running world, but how much this applies to on the mountain? So for you, for example, now I get it. You as a guide, you're going to have a client out there that, you're the fittest guy on the mountain, and probably the client's not, as a general rule. So it's not like that's going to be the common link or the weakest link beside you is your client. But I think for me and stuff, I think how many times you grab your pack, you've got this pack, it's probably too heavy already. It's 100-pound pack or 80 pounds or some ridiculous number. You've struggled to get it on. Half the time you do it by yourself when somebody else should be helping you. All the wrong stuff that you're doing. Now you've not stretched, you've not warmed up. In fact, things that I've made the mistake of over and over and over. For you, is that something cognizant that you think of all the time? Like, I'm going to stretch, I'm going to get really ready, I'm going to be comfortable, I'm going to be warm, and then I'm going to throw my pack on and get after it.
Yeah, for sure. Look, if a lot of hunters look at what they're doing, whether they're a guide or they're just a hunter in the field, this is a performance exercise. There isn't an Olympic sport for what we do, but it's still high performance business that when you get out on a mountain in Alberta, British Columbia, Northwest Territories, Yukon, Alaska, you get out on a mountain and you start going after long pursuits and long pursuit game hunting, you're in a high performance activity. There's a lot riding on it, right? Your health, the client's health. If you're a client, your guide's health and welfare and well-being. We're out there looking out for each other, and so many things can go wrong if we have if you have a minor interruption or a minor injury initially, that might not seem like a big deal, but that can compound over time. I mean, it takes 1 ounce of bad weather to roll in under the wrong conditions where you're exhausted and a little too far from home before a little thing becomes a very big thing and a very dangerous thing real quick. So if we look at that, if we look at taking care of our bodies from that perspective, like we owe it to ourselves when we get out on the mountains, and we owe it to the game we pursue, and we owe it to the natural environment to be in the best condition we can be in, then it makes good sense. What do I have to risk if I pull something when I'm running? Really nothing. I mean, disappointment in competition, yeah. But if I injure myself or I'm affected out there in the mountains, the consequences can be much, much greater to anybody that might need to come and help me, to me getting off that mountain, to me being able to help somebody. And just, quite honestly, I think just out of the, out of sort of the respect for the wilderness in a sense. And I know that might be more philosophical of a question, but look, if you're going to put yourself out into the wilderness and enjoy everything Mother Nature has to offer you, then I think we owe it to ourselves to at least not insult Mother Nature by minimizing what it can do to us if we don't show up there prepared and ready. And we can rush through certain things and try and hurry, like you say, grab that pack and not think about the consequences down the road. But we really do need to think like that. And that's something that comes with age. Look, I'd be the first one to put on my hand and say I was guilty of doing all of those things when I was young and fit and you thought you could always handle it. And we used to do these things in denim jeans and no headlamps and no lighters. You just go for it. I'm a little bit too old, a little bit too wise, and maybe a little bit too vulnerable right now at 51 to do that kind of thing. So I have both a fitness recommendation and a philosophical recommendation about why that's important.
Yeah, that's sage advice for hunters, and me in particular. I always have sort of abused that, and probably I've been lucky so far. But Joe, I'm curious for you in your scenario. You obviously you got your day job, and you're not doing it for a living. And I know you're a real fit guy, and you train and stuff. When you're out guiding, or even when you're out hunting on your own, are you doing the warm up stuff and doing all that sort of stuff too? Is that something you're thinking? And you're also 10 years younger than me too, so that's a factor as well. But I'm curious.
Is it in the mindset where Ryan's doing it? Absolutely not. My fitter days. I hope my fittest days are maybe still before me, but my fitter days are definitely behind me right now. The last couple of years, I that's not a pedestal I can put myself on, but definitely I've got the awareness out there that, if you're lugging 140, 160 pound rear moose quarter, whether it be 50 yards or 500 yards, there's a little bit of preparation work, and sometimes daylight gets low and brute force and ignorance will win. And it's just like time to get up and go. But when you got to be cautious when you're hunting with other people, or even when you're by yourself. I mean, I'm a pack horde. I pack way too much for all the solo hunting I do. And a lot of that is, I probably bring 6 days more food than I need. But when I'm going out for an 8 or 9 day solo sheep hunt, I've actually mentally packed 11 or 12 days worth of food. And thinking about, if on the last day of my hunt, if I snap my ankle, something happens, I fall off a cliff, but I've still got some mobility, but something catastrophic, I've got a tib fib or something like that. How am I going to survive when the fog comes in and it's 2 or 3 days before someone can get to me? Even if I hit the SOS on my inReach, helicopters can't fly, especially sheep hunting, you can be in very vicarious situations. So fitness and preparation comes into it. A little bit of personal awareness of the environments you're in as well. I find I personally am probably over aware and overly cautious. You head out on the mountain, though, you think about what you got to come home to. You got a family to come home to. You got a job you got to do. You got a mortgage you got to pay. So that's with me, that's always in the back of my head. But it helps to be connected and have friends that are as fitness conscious as Ryan, who's got his own home gym, who lets me use it for minimal rent and items such as that too. Is when you've got resources before you, not to exploit them, but to utilize them. A little bit of activity matters before going into the bush. Maybe it is only for a week or two. You should be if you're doing a big sheep hunt, you should be training 4 or 6 months. You should be training year round to get yourself ready. to hit those mountains. And it doesn't need to be a race, but just so your body can withstand it. That's so on. I find often the third day of the sheep hunt, you're only on day 3 and you already need a rest day because you're just pushing it so hard. So whether it be 2 weeks before, and Ryan can contradict or support this, but whether it's 2 weeks before or 6 months before, it can be minor nuances. It doesn't need to be putting a 45 to 60 pound pack on and doing 10K hikes 5 days a week. But there's things you can do. You're sitting watching a hockey game, sit on the floor and do some stretches. Just reach for your toes and your heels. Just work those joints, and all of that will pay dividends, especially as age catches up to us. That we can go a little bit further and be a little more comfortable when we're up there. And like Ryan was just saying, when we're out there, we kind of owe it to nature. Let's appreciate the places we are. We talk about wild spaces, wild places. Let's be in them when we're there, as opposed to thinking of, oh, I wish I would have taken an extra 5 minutes to enjoy the sunset over that lake or whatever it is up there. Yeah, that's my perspective on it.
Yeah, right on. Interesting you talked about that, throwing all this weight on the pack. And I'm going to tap your experience here a little bit on this, Ryan. But the Mountain Tough program, I think they're really talking about, lots of guys get so focused on the weight. Oh, yeah, get that pack heavy, get that heavy pack on. And like there's an element of that down the road. But the big thing was just getting out and getting mobile and getting the body moving, and not so much loading those heavy packs in those early days, like really focusing on I guess, the cardio aspect of it, and not so much the weight aspect, and really getting mobile. But curious to hear from your perspective, Ryan, like you do, obviously the elite running. So obviously you're crushing it on the cardio side of things. Does your training evolve when you're ready to start to go in the mountains? You start thinking about, okay, we're ramping up for the fall and we're going to do all our stuff here. Do you start changing your training routine at all, or are you just good with where you're at based on your level of fitness is like already here above everybody anyway? So is there stuff that you're thinking about when you're going to go throw a pack on and head out in the bush?
I don't adjust my personal fitness program so much. I always said this, that nothing really gets you prepared for sheep hunting but sheep hunting. There are a lot of things that you can do to make those first few days a little bit easier. But almost all of us, unless you're like hiking and backpacking all of the time, it's your first couple of days are always going to be an adjustment and a little bit rough until the body sort of settles into that routine. And look, that would be true of exercises like, people that, you don't snowmobile all summer long, right? You put the machines away in May and then you whip them out in November, and the first few rides are going to be tough on the body, right? It's just that mobility and that exercise that's always changing. But so I don't put a lot of focus on trying to, adjust my load. And the one thing I would say is that for me, I know what my maximum load is, and that's not going to really change, with any level of sort of work and fitness. And not exceeding that is pretty important to have sustainability over your life. Like taking too much or training to take far more than your body could handle or should reasonably be handling anyway is going to have long-term detrimental effects. So you kind of want to be mindful of that. But what I tell hunters when they ask what could prepare, obviously get out and walk and hike. But if you were to do nothing else, and I obviously don't recommend doing nothing else, but if you had two things you really need to make sure you do, one is walk in the footwear that you're going to wear and try and do it in a similar terrain. Now that doesn't necessarily mean up and down, but find your steep incline, decline, and some rough undulating terrain, and just make sure the footwear you've got really works for your feet. And two, make sure the bag that you're going to wear, and it doesn't need to be completely under load, but make sure you're super familiar with the bag you're going to wear, and that it fits right and sits right, and that you understand the adjustments of the bag. You'd be surprised how many hunters show up. They really don't know the functioning of their backpack, so they can't actually maximize what these modern bags are designed to do for you. And they just throw stuff in them. And what happens, of course, we all know this, day 3, day 4, you're on the mountain, you're 10 to 14 pounds lighter in water weight. So anybody listening here, you make no mistake about this. You spend time on the mountain, no matter how much you hydrate, and you're hiking all the time in the wind, exposed to the elements, and you're sweating and you're evaporating and you don't realize it, you'll be 10 to 14 pounds lighter than when you started within the first 3 days of hunting. And all of a sudden, that bag is going to sit very differently than the 14-pound heavier you back home a few days ago. In other words, your waist belt's not going to sit the same. Your shoulder belt's not going to sit the same. Your chest strap adjustment won't sit the same. The way that load sits on your back won't work. And if you don't know that and you don't know how to adjust your bag quickly to maximize its value, then you're going to have a rough ride, right? The pack won't sit well. The waist will start to wear on you. Your shoulders will start to dig in, and you'll be getting fatigued thinking it's your cardio. You'll be getting fatigued thinking it's your overall fitness level. When a good part of it is your fatigue is because you're being drugged down by the bag that's supposed to lift you up and support you. So those are my two key pieces of advice. Know your footwear and know your bag inside and out. Then you can start to adjust to the changing nature of your body on that mountain, because it absolutely will change.
It's interesting. I just did a hike this weekend. I took my wife, and we're planning a sheep hunt this fall, and she's never done anything backcountry. And so I just said, throw your pack on and like put your hunting gear on, put on your camo pants and all that garbage, and throw the pack on, just empty, just wear the pack. And she was like, I can't believe how hard this is with an empty pack. Like, it's whatever, 8 pounds. And she's like, she was blown away by just like, it's so weird moving and like trying to move through the trees and all that sort of stuff. And she was like, she couldn't, and she was exhausted. Like she's a runner. We go out for a run and she'd be running laps around me, but just like, your feet move differently in the backcountry and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it was very poignant this past weekend going on that hike with her. It was pretty cool to see that evolution. Okay, so there's tons of stuff. We could just talk about all, but I want to talk about all this other stuff too. Before we do that, I'm curious, what kind of mileage? So my understanding is the running that you just did, the racing that you did this past couple weekends, you were running shorter distance, 1,500, 2,500, 3,000, all short distance, but you also do long distance stuff. What kind of mileage are you putting on a week, out of curiosity, like right now, and like when you're training for this winter stuff?
I'm running about 60 to 80 miles a week. So it just depends. Okay. If I'm coming into sort of a race weekend, then I'll be down around that 60-mile mark. But if I've got gaps between running, I tend to move more toward my endurance portion of my program, and that'll bump me up to that 70, 80 miles a week.
Okay, cool. And then just like based on your experience, and obviously you've got your regime, and looking at what Ryan Leef does and the rest of the world does are two different things based on the fact that you're an elite athlete. But how much for the average person that's going to the mountains, and you talked about, getting the pack on, getting the backcountry, getting in those boots, how important is it, like on a cardio aspect of it? Can you rely on the treadmill versus, say, for example, a step climber? So if you're like talking to a guy like me that's maybe been in the backcountry but not in great shape, trying to get ready for a fall sheep hunt, what should I be thinking about? Should I be thinking about a stepper, a treadmill? Obviously, like the hikes are a given. That's going to happen no matter what. But in terms of cardio, what would be your kind of go-to for that?
My go-to is the treadmill for sure. It's a brilliant taskmaster. It sets the pace for you, so you don't need to worry about fluctuating pace if you want to understand what your pace capacity is. Treadmill's a really great way to do that. It also builds a lot of mental capacity, because it is boring. Like, there's nothing fun about running on a treadmill for any length of time at all. So if you can sort of find your rhythm and just do that's helpful for sure, because there's a lot of time on the mountains where despite the scenery, you're just in a world of hurt and you just need some sort of mental escape from that, and to be able to get into your own head and just put in the miles and put in the work can be advantageous. But some people, running is not a great exercise for them because of their body structure. The pounding on the treadmill might not be comfortable. So those stair climbers are really good. Lower resistance, you can get that elevation work, but not have that impact pounding. So it's an equally good machine. Exercise bikes are also great because there you can adjust your tensions. You can get up under load as though you're climbing a hill with all that resistance. And have very, very little impact. So I would just say, depending on your body type, depending on how your body physiologically can handle each different exercise, any one of those three are really good. There's other things you can do, pool work and those sorts of things when you get a little bit more specialized with your program. But those three, stepper, treadmill, and exercise bikes are all awesome options to build cardio, build muscular strength, and have low impact resistance.
Awesome. Cool. Okay, let's shift off of the elite training stuff and let's touch a little bit on politics. So you mentioned earlier on that you just got the nod from the Conservative Party of Canada for the Yukon spot in the upcoming election here. So obviously you spent time federally representing the Yukon previously, and so no stranger to the political ring. Let's just talk a little bit about sort of your general consensus on politics in Canada right now. So, we had Blaine Culkins down at our show here a couple weeks ago I guess almost a month ago now in Penticton. Blaine kind of gave us his timelines. He's like, yeah, Carney's going to get the nod. They're going to call, and everything he's predicted has been like dangerously close so far. So obviously he's got that insider view of what it looks like. And I'm sure you share that with him. So I'd love to hear your take on where we're headed, when you think the election is going to be called, and sort of what you're seeing. And then also, it's interesting to see what sort of the polls are doing too, right? We're seeing this sort of resurgence of the Liberals as well in the polls too, with probably, I guess, the fact that with Carney and stuff. So love to hear your take on everything going on there.
Yeah, there's a lot I guess, to unbundle. Yeah, we're obviously prepared for a fairly quick election now. I think that's representative of what Canada really wants, whatever their choice may be. I think Canadians are demanding that the prorogation of Parliament ends, that we get the opportunity to go to the polls, vote in an election, determine what our government is going to look like, and get on with the business of business. So overall, things have become, I think, more and more divisive in a way over the last handful of years in the Canadian political spectrum. I think that's very much true of the North American context right now, perhaps even globally, but at least, me paying attention to what's happening domestically and what's happening just south of the border. We're seeing a lot of division in the political messaging that's going out. And, I think there's a real appetite for some sense of unity again, and just a calming of those seas, and a little bit, a dialing back of the hyperbole and rhetoric that we're all getting tired of. And I think the Conservatives and Pierre have got a really great plan, a great message for a brighter future for us. And I think that's what Canadians are looking for. Is we've lived the last 9 years under some pretty disparate conditions, and I don't think Canadians really need to have a lot of time being reminded of that. I mean, we're living it present day. We've lived it for 9 years. I think what they're looking for is what is it? What's the horizon look like? What's our future look like? Well, what do we have for hope and promise and opportunity? And I think that's really a message that we're gonna be able to tell well here in the Yukon. We've got a real enthusiastic, energetic campaign in front of us, and it's going to be a good news story. It's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of excitement, and we're going to be talking about our plan and your future.
That's awesome. So if we took a look at timelines, obviously you mentioned you guys are prepping like it's imminent. Obviously, I think we're prorogued till the 24th. Are we still thinking that? Obviously, Carney could call the election any day, literally like today if he wanted to. But that said, if we go back on the 24th, do you think that there'll be that confidence vote will fail? Jagmeet has said, and the NDP have said they're going to pull that card, but then with all this stuff going on south of the border, they were kind of again retracting that. So I'm kind of curious what your perspective is on that. If you think that they're going to force it through, or we end up, is there any chance that we end up with an October election?
I suppose there's always a chance, and this is always the fun political pundit side of things, and I'd be weighing in on this regardless if I was a candidate, because it's always fun to sort of speculate, and there's great interest around this. I think in all likelihood we're going to see an election called this week, Thursday or at very latest Sunday, which would be the last day before Parliament's set to resume. If that's not the case, and the House is set to resume the next day, then I think everybody would should understand that there's a foregone conclusion that backdoor deals have been made, that Jagmeet would have already confirmed that the NDP will prop up the Liberals yet again, and most likely the Bloc as well, because I don't think any reasoned person would assume that Mark Carney would want to resume the House, face a non-confidence vote, and lose it and be forced into an election. I think it only makes sense that you maintain some level of control over that, which would mean he walks to the governor general and triggers the election himself, versus being forced to by the majority of the members of the House of Commons. That seems a bit strategically disadvantageous in so many ways. So, I would say that we can pretty safely assume that if the House resumes on Monday, it's because a deal's been made, and then who knows? But I expect to see an election here real quick.
Right on. So, my understanding that you just got the nod on the weekend here. So, if in fact there's an election called, say, for example, Thursday, that you suggested could occur, you know, how, and of course we know the Canadian, like it blows my mind when I look south of the border and they're literally starting 2, 3, 4, 5 years out for an election, right? And it's so long, so strategic, and in Canada, we've got that kind of short window. How are you feeling? Are you prepared for it? What does it look like? Obviously, I really appreciate you taking the time today, because I'm sure you got bigger things to think about right now in terms of the election. But I'd love to hear sort of, where your planning goes from here with regards to the campaign.
Yeah, right now we're building the campaign team outward. Lots of excitement and enthusiasm on the ground here in Whitehorse and across the Yukon, all through the communities. I think we're building on the momentum. There was a tremendous groundswell of support that came out for the nomination contest for us. Lots of people reaching out right now. So there is a lot of excitement, a lot of enthusiasm, and we're just going to build on that. We're ready for this. I'm ready for it. This will be my third campaign now, so I'm familiar with that. Although I'm 10 years removed from the last time I ran, yeah, much like running, I suppose that's just been, now I'm going to be able to draw into that bank of experience I've got. I think I'm coming into this one with a lot more maturity, a lot more realism and focus and an understanding of what we need to do to make this work. And it's exciting times, and it's much needed here in the Yukon and in the country. So I think it's a lot easier to be going out on the doorstep of Canadians and on the doorstep of Yukoners, probably for the first time in my campaigning career, where I'm not trying to sell anybody a message. What I'm talking to Yukoners about is what they've been telling us for the last 9 years. This is their message to us. This is what we need. We need to get rid of a carbon tax. We need to lower the cost of houses. We need to get rid of these tent cities that are blowing up all over the place. We need to stop a fentanyl crisis that's affecting more Canadians than COVID did. We need to secure our borders. We need to have sovereign strategies to protect our borders broadly, and we need to make sure that we have positive interprovincial trade so Canada can start to trade with Canada and do well. We need to make sure that we're not as vulnerable to singular market services and look across globally at what we can accomplish. So all of these things they're telling us, and then our plans and Pierre's plans are really all built around the voices of Canadians that he's heard. So it's a very different tone for us, I think, in this coming election. Because I don't think we're trying to convince anybody of anything. I think we're just hearing their Canadians' voices, and we're responding with a mature, strong, reasonable, sound plan that's putting Canada in a real powerful position instead of the vulnerable position that we've been in for the last 9 years, and the subsequent impact that we're currently facing right now because of the chaotic, disorganized, and quite frankly, self-serving policies of the Liberal government.
Let's touch a little bit on Yukon policy. So when you look in your riding specifically, and you mentioned a number of the Conservative Party of Canada's core, points that Pierre's been doing a great job of articulating for like the last year plus. But you look locally at home in your riding. What are your kind of top one, two, or three items that Yukoners are telling you that are really, really a concern for them that you really want to tackle that is a key priority for you personally?
Well, and I think the Yukon's the same as the rest of Canada right now. It's affordability, it's the cost of living. Of course, we always are challenged with higher costs of living than the rest of the country for the most part because of the distance to transport goods and services up here. Obviously we have to import certain things that can't be grown here, fresh produce, grocery prices, especially in our isolated fly-in and remote communities. That drives the cost. Those things then have continuing spin down effects, but it all starts with the health and strength of our economy. So if we have a weakened economy where people are not only not living paycheck to paycheck anymore, but they're living paycheck to manage debt, that has health consequences, that has addiction consequences, that has criminality connections to standard of livings. All of these are influenced by whether or not you have a healthy, strong economy, and that's no different for Yukoners. We want to see people's paychecks go further. We want to see the cost of living come down. We want to see affordable housing and affordable rent. We want our young Yukoners to be able to look forward to a dream of owning a home. And currently, we know right now they're not. They're not even being able to face the potential of being able to afford a down payment for a home. That starts to drive our youth out of the territory as they look for different markets to deploy their education, to deploy their training, to deploy their skills, and eventually build a home and a family. And we don't want to be chasing Yukoners out of the territory because they have to make a choice about affordability. We want to be able to keep them here. So much of it centers around how well we do with creating a fiscal framework that's responsible and sound, so that we can give Yukoners a choice and hope for prosperity, and then they can start to invest, and we can invest with them in all the things that matter, from healthcare to education to our health and addiction challenges to the criminality challenges. Now, we might face different issues than the gang and gun violence, let's say, in downtown Toronto, but crime here is directly connected and influenced by the state of our health financially, and we need to turn that around. I think that's a big priority for Yukoners, and then we can start to connect the dots downstream of that as we build out our platform and as we build out our policies as a government. But I think really we're fully focused on making life affordable for us again, and from there we can really spread our wings and envision dreams once again.
Yeah, curious. Do you guys have the homeless problem? Is there obviously I think there's some addiction issues and stuff like that all our communities are facing, and I think Yukon's. But do you guys have homeless encampments, that sort of stuff there? Like I know quite often it's weather dependent. Do you guys have any of that going on in Whitehorse?
We do, and you're seeing more use of shelter and supported living services that exist in the Yukon. Obviously, we're seeing the same things as the South are in terms of food bank use. That sort of expanded homeless population that you might see in areas that have different climates that tend to generate the tent city kind of things. We don't see a lot of that. It's not that we're void of it. There are smaller sort of tent utilizations, especially in the summer months, for people that are underhoused or homeless. But those issues are still very real. They tend to affect us at a per population measure, so 3 or 4 or 15 or 20 people that are underhoused or homeless here have the same impact and influence as 1,000 in the city of Toronto. These are our neighbors, these are our family, these are our friends, and we're a much tighter knit community. So when you see fellow Yukoners wrestling with homelessness, or wrestling with being underhoused, or wrestling with drug and alcohol addictions that are directly functioned by just the inability to afford to live. And we know that, and when that's connected to the government policies and programs that have put us in that position, that's a real challenging thing to realize, and that's dismaying, and it needs to be corrected. We can correct it quickly. We can correct it with sound leadership and sound economic focus. We can turn this around. But yeah, those things are very real for us. I would argue in a far more personal way than other jurisdictions.
Okay. Okay. So anyone that wants to learn a bit more about your campaign or get involved, what's the best course of action? Just the CPC national website? Is there some place they can go? I know, again, this just happened Saturday, so it's early days, but anyone that wants to support you or learn more about what you guys are trying to do, where do they go?
Well, right now I've got my Facebook page up. I got a personal page, Yukon's Outer Edge, and I've also got the political one. It's Leaf number 4 Yukon, and that's our website as well, Leaf number 4 Yukon .ca. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and that website. We'll be growing all of that out. It's a bit of a framework right now, but as the campaign unfolds, we'll be pushing our message on those social media forums, and we can be reached by email and the contacts that are listed on there, and we're going to be out and about. Of course, people won't have to rely on social media to connect with me. We're going to be on the streets and in the communities of this territory, knocking on doors, going to events, meeting people face to face, hearing more of their ideas, comments, concerns, and enthusiasm as we go forward. So I'll be a highly visible presence here over the next month and a half, with a lot of energy and a lot of fun and a great team behind me.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, I wish you the best of luck. Before we switch off the politics, Joe mentioned this when we were chatting offline. Touch a little bit about the Conservative Hunting and Angling Caucus and your involvement in that. I know Blaine Calkins is a lead on that. He's the shadow critic for hunting and angling, does a phenomenal job. And I know you were very pivotal in sort of the setup of that caucus. So touch on that a bit for us before we pivot off.
Yeah, Conservative Hunting and Angling Caucus is an amazing caucus connection for grassroots conservation, grassroots frontline hunters, anglers, people involved in the great outdoors. It was really as much a brainchild of Robert Sopak, who's just was a wonderful outdoor writer, amazing member of parliament representative for Dauphin Swan River, Manitoba. Just such an enthusiastic conservationist over the years, and unfortunately he passed away recently, and we lost a really amazing advocate for conservation and across Canada in losing him. But he worked on starting that up, and a handful of really active and enthusiastic conservationists got involved there in Ottawa back in 2011-12, Blaine Calkins being one of them. And he's really carried the torch since then and done a great job of not just connecting with Canadians, but introducing members of parliament to how big this community is within their own ridings, because, some of them don't have a full understanding of how big conservation and hunting and fishing is, particularly in more urban communities. And I think Blaine and the Hunting and Angling Caucus did a really great job of letting members of parliament know who don't necessarily have a touch point into that community, that there is a community within every riding within the country, that it's an important community. It's a passionate community. It's one that can get very active and motivated by the right type of policies. And we wanted to make sure, when we created sort of that partisan side of the Hunting and Angling Caucus, so it is a conservative Hunting and Angling Caucus, we wanted to show that it is our government. It is a conservative governments that are most focused on these things, and we wanted to be able to give the stakeholders and conservation groups and organizations a direct point of contact with at that time with government, and we invested through that caucus millions of dollars in the the Recreational Fisheries Conservation Partnership Fund, which got initiated. Eventually that was. Well, I want to say it was somewhere in the neighborhood of $50 million investment over time in those years. And it was all grassroots stuff. So it was a really wonderful organization. It's a great one at the political level. It embodies everything that we believe in as hunters and anglers, and it targets that grassroots community stuff to keep our way of life healthy and strong and at the forefront of the minds of the people that make the political decisions at the federal level.
Well, that's awesome. I'm really grateful for that you guys have that. And you think of it, like how many people have hunting and fishing licenses across Canada? It's literally millions, right? So it's not a small group. It's not a niche group we're representing. It's a large swath of Canadians, for starters. And then, I always hear this thing, oh, well, if the Conservatives get in power, then you don't need that. Or, same thing with the gun lobby, right? With, the gun lobby, it's like, well, if the Conservatives get elected, you don't need it. But the thing is we do need that opportunity to reach out, because I know that you'll go to Ottawa and you'll have an agenda that you'll want to push that will look after hunters or anglers and our community. But that doesn't mean your entire cabinet's going to do that, or the leadership of the Conservative Party. Like, you guys need help too, to understand, so that the rest of the party understands that, hey, this is important to a large amount of Canadians, right? So I think that it's certainly important during times of when the Conservatives aren't in power. But even when the Conservatives are in power, it's equally as important, so that we can articulate that. That's the one thing that when we've been at these meetings, Blaine's bringing in these other ministers or these other MPs from different areas, and they're getting an understanding of the issues that are important to us. And they might have nothing to do with fish and wildlife. Their agriculture, whatever the case may be. And it's really important that that message is heard by the other elected officials as well.
Yeah, absolutely true. And look, this is when we do this, you're at the front lines of all of this. And if you surrendered these groups and organizations and just said, well, okay, we have a government that understands us and favors us, and then you just drift away, then the shift starts to be that government is making the decisions for you instead of with you or because of you. So these organizations are so critical, and they have to sustain themselves and exist regardless of what political parties in power, because you're the ones living and breathing this. You're at the front lines of this. You're connected and communicating with your membership. You're growing your membership. You're hearing from your membership. And then you're communicating that up to us. So we're driving policy based on what we're hearing from you. And if those groups aren't connected, don't have access points, then the reverse happens in a real unfortunate way. And it's all of a sudden government starts deciding what's best for you and then trying to convince you of that. And that's not the best way for Canada to move forward by any stretch of the imagination. It's always better to govern on the voice of Canadians than try and be the voice of Canadians and tell them how to live life and what programs and services are going to be best for them. That's not how this is supposed to work.
Yeah, awesome. Well said. Okay, again, we could talk for hours on this, and there's only so much time. So the last part that we wanted to touch on was sort of the guide outfitting industry. We've had Joe. Why don't you come in and talk a little bit about the partnership that we're working on, this Rogue River outfitting caribou hunt, and you're the point lead on the society end of things. So just bring our listeners up to what we're doing there, and then we can dive into the minutia on it.
Yeah, well, Ryan, and Ryan's going to correct me on this term, but being the head of client services with Rogue River Outfitters and Jim Shockey Hunting Adventures, I've known Ryan for a number of years, and about 6 or 7 years ago, they really branched out, working on just different hunts and the late season caribou hunt. So depending on weather conditions, it can be you're out branching from the hunting camp on Argos, but in the Yukon and in the far north, the snow comes early. We can be in snow from mid-September until end of May. But generally the end of September, early October is a time when, especially in the mountains in the far north, the snow hits. And so there's a lot more, you're getting around on snow machines, but those caribou are moving. They're mountain caribou. And it's just been a phenomenal hunt. I've never been on the hunt, never been in a camp when the hunt's going on, but you see the photos, or, Ryan, when he's guiding, he'll be 3 hunt sets. So he's in the bush. He gets, I think, to see power and internet for 4 or 5 days between the end of moose season to the start of late season caribou. And then he's in camp for 30 days, and you're waiting for him to get back just to see the dump of photos that are going to come out of there. Just the phenomenal time they have. You know, one of the last outfits still operating. Not, I don't know if it's the last, but you know, they carry it right through to the end of the season in the Yukon. Caribou, moose, sheep, everything is a full stop at last light on October 31st. And I think generally till about the 29th, sometimes to the 30th. That's the last day of the season, and of course you're struggling with weather because you know by the end of the season, the bush planes landing on skis and they're clearing a runway with snow machines or Argos towing bed frames on the airstrip to flatten it out for the plane to come pick up the clients on the last load. But so right now we got Ryan's going to give the best description of this, but we have a Rogue River Outfitters, which is Jim Shockey Hunting Adventures Yukon outfitter territory. It's going to be a 2025. So this October, I believe it's the second hunt set is for this raffle prize winner. But you're going to fly into Canada's True North and Rogue River Outfitters territory and do a late season caribou hunt. They got a great team that are up there the last couple of years working on it. If you guys have ever watched the show, you got Jim Fry, you got Brian Arguin. I don't know if Christian's been doing it or who. Ryan can talk more about that, but just a phenomenal opportunity where there's not a lot of opportunity to be had. Ryan and Jim and Rogue River were really gracious to provide us this opportunity to raffle this off. It's going to be one of our premier 5 or 6 top raffles for the 24-25 season. That's going to generate a lot of funds for wild sheep in British Columbia. Good chance you might even be able to glass some wild sheep from those caribou grounds where you're hunting. But I'll let Ryan dip into that. But this is a huge moneymaker for BC wild sheep and conservation across the board.
Yeah, that's it is going to be exciting. You know, I everybody says, "Well, what's your favorite hunt?" And sometimes it just depends on what I haven't been guiding last is what you like. I mean, everything's amazing. Love being on the mountains chasing sheep. Love the season when the moose are rutting and calling and of course after you do a season of moose, you're looking forward to dealing with anything but 1,200 pounds of moose meat. And then we shift into caribou. And caribou are really spectacular. I've said this, you know, you could check my record on this one. I've said this for years that I think caribou are the most underrated of the big game species. And I think a good portion of that had to do with their abundance in those big herds in Quebec and Newfoundland and Labrador over the years. And I think there was a real infusion of that mass market hunting that was going on those big herds. And as we started to see them deplenish and opportunities disappear, you know, people kind of had their fill, I guess, and maybe faded away. And we started bringing it back, you know, to the forefront of exciting adventures and hunts to do. About 6 years ago, the mountain caribou are phenomenal. You know, you've got such a majestic animal, some of the last big herd animal species in our country, and in some of the most amazing wilderness there is. And as Joe said, got a great team of veteran guides. You're going to be in Jim's actual camp, the one that's reserved just for Jim. You'll be in that camp. So a little bit of touch on I wouldn't say history because he denied the fact that he's history. He's not yet, but you know, maybe that living, existing, and building legend, and just you know, real neat experience and opportunity to see the land that he's enjoyed so much, and everybody's familiar with on the hunting adventures or the Uncharted shows are right out of that camp. And we believe me, there's stories behind the way we had to beg, borrow, and steal permission to get in to allow these hunts to take place at his very special place on this planet and in his camp. But it's an amazing hunt. The animals are in the post rut, well, the rut and the post rut congregations, so they're not truly in a migration, but they do move from sort of their summer grounds further south into the timber for their winter grounds. And through October, as the winter approaches, that's what they're doing. They're moving in those big rut and post-rut congregations. So we tend to see a lot of caribou. You tend to have a pretty decent selection. We've done well in harvesting old mature bulls, which is great for the sustainability of that population. Biologically, the herd is strong. It's stable to growing. We do annual quota discussions and negotiations, so we're very much part of caribou conservation management regime up in our outfitting area, and we're lucky to have that kind of opportunity in the remote wilderness, very, very remote region, fly in only. So it's pretty exclusive with some great people. So I don't know, I could probably talk for hours about how fun and adventurous it is, and whoever the successful person is, we'll spend a lot of time filling them in on all the details to be ready for it. But teaming up with you guys on this is amazing. It's great for conservation, great moneymaker for the people that are doing phenomenal work there in British Columbia to keep sheep on the mountain and keep hunting and our outdoor way of life as a fundamental long sustaining thing. So we're happy to partner up. We're happy to work with them, and we're really looking forward to the hunt and give somebody an opportunity to maybe get on a hunt that they otherwise would never be able to experience, and we'll make it an adventure they'll remember for a lifetime.
That's awesome and really exciting. So obviously they fly into the guide area, and then um, for the day hunt, is it like sleds? Are they on foot? Are they, I guess obviously Jim's known for the Argos. What can they expect once they're on the ground there?
So we're lucky we're gonna have heated cabins for everybody to stay in, so we don't need to do the wall tent wood stove program. So the hunters will enjoy a nice heated cabin experience. Daytimes can be a little bit mixed, so we'll use snow machines or Argos just depending on the snow conditions. If there's enough snow, obviously we'll utilize the snow machines to get across the land, and otherwise, we've got a pretty decent stable trail network in there that we can use the Argos for. It's one of those hunts where you can be as active as you want. Of course, mountain caribou are mountain caribou, so they can be above kind of sheep country, right on the tops of mountains, or they can be right down low in the valleys, and really every point in between. And there's lots of times where we'll see simultaneously caribou down low, caribou up high. So if the hunter is physically fit and looking forward to a bit of a hike and get out there and explore, well, there's we can do that. If we have somebody who has some mobility challenges or is a little bit limited in their ability to hike around, and there's not an absolute necessity to do that either. We can focus on hunting sort of the lower land and cater to really kind of any age or physical ability dynamic within reason. So it can be a real enjoyable experience. The days tend to be a bit shorter in October, so we're looking at daylight kicking in around 8:30, 9 a.m. It's usually dark by 6:30, quarter to 7. So you have pretty decent hunting hours throughout the day, but it also gives us lots of time in the evening to get back, have good meals, great conversation. You'll be able to pick our guides' brains, our veteran guides, just about any curiosity you've got about the hunting experience across the Yukon throughout different seasons. There'll be no shortage of stories and adventures to share and tell. So you get a real neat layer of camaraderie and connectedness on this hunt, where some of our, the earlier season hunts where you're pressing 20 hours of daylight, you're go, 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 eat a mountain house, go to bed and sleep as hard as you can for as short as you can to do it again. This one's not as punishing that way. We eat good, we sleep good, and we have great visits. Kind of all those things that you expect a traditional hunt camp to be like in many regards. So it's a lot of fun that way.
Man, that sounds epic. Joe, touch a little bit on, how it works with our gaming, like covering costs and that sort of stuff. What do people need to sort of save for if they get drawn for this?
All right. I'm just going to add in there too. Depending on who you talk to, some people say different thing about caribou and different times of year, and sometimes we do have some people that travel from a long way away. Again, I'm not part of these hunts, but I'm here, and my garage sometimes in the fall gets converted into a butcher shop. And some people say, late season caribou around that rut, post rut aren't any good. And I had a big caribou stew last night for me and my family. The meat is wonderful. Sometimes a little advantageous to deal with, but that all the caribou meat, if it can't be provided to a local community, which that's what we strive for, in the Yukon here, and Rogue River, along with many other outfitters. If the meat can't be taken by the hunter, that's you're putting an honest effort into putting that into a local community, Aboriginal community, or food. There's even a food bank program in the Yukon. But I sometimes am the guarantor and beneficiary of some of those hunts, and I can tell you the meat is wonderful as well. And having not traveling quite as far, and depending on which airline you book with, if you can carry a little bit more luggage, they're always happy to make sure you can take as much of that meat home as possible. So, because people will have some rumors, and the barren ground can be a little stinkier during the rut, but the meat is wonderful coming out of these hunts as well. I just like to add that in. As far as what you can expect with this is your heart's desire. So the winner of this raffle, it's an all expenses paid hunt with Rogue River Outfitters. Our airfare is generated and calculated based out of Vancouver. So you're going to get a travel voucher at fair market value. We elevate it a little bit, just, market values and costs fluctuate, but you're going to fly with all your gear and your kit from anywhere in British Columbia. And if someone from outside of British Columbia wins, you're going to get the fair market value travel voucher. You just need to be in British Columbia at the time of the purchase. The purchaser has to be located in British Columbia. That is not to exclude any individual. We want everyone that wants to buy a ticket to buy a ticket, but we are restricted and have to operate within the BC gaming and lottery rules. And that's why the purchaser needs to physically have 1 foot inside the Yukon at the time of purchasing. And the raffle box platform has an IP tracker, so it does track that and can sometimes make some challenges. But there's also a helpline. You call Kyle if you got any problems, and you yell and scream at him. But you're going to get that travel voucher, so it's going to cover you coming up here, getting a night's hotel in the Yukon and in Whitehorse, and then the next day you'll be hopping on that plane with the other clients that are going into camp for that hunt set. You're going to come out. You'll have that travel voucher will be enough for you to have one more night in Whitehorse before traveling home. So some of the gear, so it can be cooler. So the successful winner is going to want to look at some warm weather gear. We'll work with you with that, but you'll also you'll be in touch with Ryan, or if Ryan is disposed in a federal position, there's 2 or 3 other individuals that they're going to put you in great contact with that are going to tell you all about the hunt and what type of gear, personal gear, warm weather jackets, what you need. You'll follow that kit list. You'll pack carefully because they're stringent about your weight limits because there's a lot of kit and you want to make sure everyone's got the gear they need. But you'll know well in advance. Play with the equipment you need. You're going to go in there, be with a couple of other hunters that are there at the same time, and have a phenomenal experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. I seen Ryan's cheeky little smile when you said deposed in a federal position. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, it's good. Awesome, Joe. Well, that's great. Yeah, it's going to be a phenomenal hunt. So tickets are on sale for that. We're going to drop this next Wednesday, so on the 25th. So you're going to have about 4 weeks to get your tickets, and great odds. Tickets are $50, I think, Joe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, $50 a ticket, and I think we got 2,000 tickets available. The odds are still good if you look at what it is to win a lottery. Great odds. Dollars of that. We have a small premium we pay, but rest assured, Jim and Ryan and Rogue River Outfitters have given us a phenomenal price at this. So right now, you buy a ticket, this money goes to conservation. We are already there. We sold enough. Every dollar now is going to conservation. It's going to wild sheep on the landscape in British Columbia. So it's a win, even if you don't get that one number that you're looking for. But this is a phenomenal experience and phenomenal opportunity.
Well said, Joe. And Ryan, again, thank you for the role that you played, and obviously, Joe, all the work that you do. But just a huge shout out to Rogue River and everything that you guys do for for us as hunters and conservation, and then, supporting us on this raffle. It's just a great opportunity to work together. And I know we're working on some other stuff that I'm really excited about, that hopefully that all comes to fruition too. But just super grateful for your role in this, Ryan. Thank you.
No, our pleasure. It's great working with you guys. We really do appreciate the efforts in conservation that you guys make, and it's all about preserving our way of life. And in order to do that, we need to put money back into it. We need to put money back onto the land, into the hands of the people that are boots on the ground, that make long-term sustainable ecosystems, benefit wildlife, benefit the habitat that preserves and supports all that wildlife. And I think we can all agree that there's nobody that does that better on the front lines than hunters. We always put our money where our mouths are. We put our sweat equity, our energy, and our passion into it. And BC Wild Sheep Society has always been a leader in that front. So it's an amazing partnership, and we're looking forward to it. And we're looking forward to having the victor recipient of this prize package with us, and show them the way we live life up here, and how we go about business, and it'll just be a really fun experience for all of us.
Amen, brother. I don't think we could top that. Appreciate everything. Thank you for your time today, Ryan. Best of luck in your endeavors, and look forward to some really good things coming out of the Yukon for you and your endeavors there. And appreciate everything you do. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Kyle, and thanks, Joe and Kyle. Yeah, we didn't talk about this, but you probably don't get enough shout outs. These kind of forums, like these podcasts that give the voice to hunters and the voice to conservationists, are so important. Just another opportunity for people to hear from a diverse cross section of Canadians that are invested in this as a passion, and you're providing that kind of platform for both people that are happy and comfortable speaking about it, but also to people that want to hear about it. So kudos to you for running such a wonderful podcast, and being that moderator of such a critical voice for us. So good job, and thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.